Distinguished family members, it's good morning. Great to see you as always. Thank you for rejoining us on day 2. To start out today, we are extremely privileged and honored to have the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia and Pacific Affairs, the Honorable Daniel Kritenbrink. Ambassador Kritenbrink is a 30-year career diplomat, senior diplomat in our State Department. Not only is he in charge of the entire Asia-Pacific region in his current role, but prior to that, he was the ambassador, our ambassador, to Vietnam. Ambassador Kritenbrink is not only a friend to this mission, but he is a champion for this mission. We're very honored and pleased. In fact, I remember when Ambassador Kritenbrink was nominated to be ambassador to Vietnam, in advance of his confirmation, he reached out to all the stakeholders within the POW MIA mission. And we had a meeting with him individually, DPAA did, and Mills Griffith had a meeting with him. And that to me showed not only was he well invested in this mission, but in that initial meeting, Ambassador, I remember he knew a lot about it and why this was so foundational to the relationship that we now enjoy with Vietnam and the other countries in Southeast Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, the Assistant Secretary of State, Ambassador Kritenbrink.
I really appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here. I want to, at the outset, recognize my good friend, Director Kelly McKeague, General Kelly McKeague. Kelly was one of the first people that I met, along with Ann Mills Griffiths, as even before I was confirmed to be America's ambassador to Vietnam. And I wanted to send a signal that I personally and the U.S. government remain deeply committed to these issues. I was honored that Kelly came to my swearing in as well. That was, I believe, in October of 2017. And I wanted to come here today as well to honor all of you. I'm grateful to all of you for the sacrifices that you and your families have made. I'm grateful to Kelly and all of the hardworking friends at DPAA who continue this sacred work of ensuring the fullest possible accounting of our missing from the Vietnam War era. While I was America's ambassador to Vietnam, I saw firsthand how important these issues still are today to our families, to Vietnam, and to our partnership with Vietnam as well. I was struck, as Kelly mentioned just a moment ago, that the great irony of the tragedy of the Vietnam War was that it was the accounting mission, as all of you know better than I, that first brought the United States and Vietnam back together and became the bridge to normalization in 1995. And what's so moving to me today is I can say with great confidence today that Vietnam is one of America's best, closest, most able partners. And yet what we always say with our Vietnamese counterparts is that while we've worked hard to try to reconcile and overcome our past, we never forget. And I would argue that the work we do on the humanitarian mission of accounting for our missing remains a central pillar of our partnership with Vietnam. We've engaged in other legacy of war work to clean up unexploded ordnance and Agent Orange and to treat people with disabilities. And I think perhaps most moving to our Vietnamese counterparts in recent years, we've worked with them as well on their own accounting mission. Again, I wanted to come here because I guess I'm technically America's most senior diplomat focused on Asia. I cover the entire region, 24 countries, 45 different posts, more than 14,000 Americans deployed across our region. But I still believe that this mission is central to what we do. I've seen the amazing work that Kelly and his team do. I was able to go out in some of the accounting missions while I was in Vietnam, and I think what was, and perhaps many of you have done so as well, what I was so moved by was that today our service members, assisted by Kelly's able team, volunteer for these missions. They're assisted by hundreds of local people who all work diligently, in many cases literally and figuratively, to move mountains to try to, again, account for our missing. It was quite moving to me. It was also moving to me during my service in Vietnam to see many family members and many veterans come back to Vietnam and see some of the emotional experiences that they had. It was interesting, if I could mention, I met a gentleman, Gary Sorak, is that correct? Gary, are you here in the room? I met Gary just a moment ago, and he shared his story with me. I was moved to learn, too, that the Department of State, in addition to supporting the sacred mission of DPAA to ensure the fullest possible accounting, our Bureau of Consular Affairs also works to help assist DPAA in accounting for some of the missing civilians from the Vietnam War as well. And I understand that there are families of two of those missing civilians from the Vietnam War era, Edward Dolan and Alexander Shimkin, who are also here today as well. So I just want to underscore that we at the State Department, through our diplomacy with our partners in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, we're committed to this mission. We're committed to supporting Kelly and his amazing team. Most of all, we're committed to all of you, the families of the missing, both military and civilian. I will say as well, I hope it's of interest to you that even now, 50 years after the end of the conflict, that these important issues, as I said, remain central to what we do. I'm excited that next year in Vietnam we'll celebrate both the 30th anniversary of our diplomatic relations and also we'll commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. But these issues will remain central to what we do. I think the same is true in Laos. I was just in Laos, I was just in Hanoi maybe 10 days ago. I raised the importance of these issues there again. I was in Vientiane, Laos just about 2 weeks ago and raised the importance of these issues as well. I'm happy to say that amongst our partners in Southeast Asia, maybe our relationship with Laos has moved the slowest for a whole variety of reasons. I had the honor of accompanying former President Obama to Vientiane in 2016 when we launched a comprehensive partnership. And we agreed at that time that we were going to accelerate our work on these issues. That's happened, but it's not without challenges, and we're working with Kelly and his team to work through that. And the same holds true in Cambodia. There's a new prime minister, many of you may know, in Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Manet, son of Hun Sen, of course, who I'm sure is well known to many of you. I think we have an opportunity to reset our partnership with Cambodia, but irrespective of where our bilateral relationship has been, I'm proud to say that this work has continued with all three countries, and it will continue going forward. Maybe I'll share one other story that was quite moving to me while I was our ambassador to Vietnam. In the midst of COVID, Vietnam, like many countries around the world, struggled to deal with the pandemic. They ended up dealing with it pretty well, actually, relatively speaking, but they mostly shut their borders. And when they shut their borders, they were unable of course, foreign visitors were unable to travel to Vietnam, including DPAA personnel. But I was quite moved that the Vietnamese wanted to continue the accounting mission and that we had enough trust with them that we were able to allow them to continue that work, even if all of our full contingent wasn't on the ground with them. And I think that's really a testament to the truth, or to the trust that we have built with these three countries. So again, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to come here and speak with you here today. I want to thank all of you for your sacrifices, for your service. I want to let you know that we will never forget. We're committed to this mission and committed to being your partner. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you, Ambassador. I think that's a cooler title for me. I know he's now the Assistant Secretary, but that doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as Ambassador. I think Ambassador is really cool.
Can I just say, I'm a farm boy from Nebraska, so the idea that I became, so I'd rather probably be called farm boy, but the fact that I became Ambassador and Assistant Secretary, it's quite moving and quite emotional to me, and to be able to work on these issues and to see the service that you rendered to our country, Kelly, and the assistance you've given to our great families. Quite moving to me. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, not only is he a friend to this mission, but he's also a champion of this mission. We saw it in inordinate times in Vietnam, and we see it inordinately here in Washington, where he serves, as he mentioned, the senior diplomat over all of Asia. Ambassador, on behalf of the families, we wanted to present you with a replica of this year's National POW MIA Recognition Day poster with our thanks for your steadfast leadership and support.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kelly. That means a lot to me.
So, two of the ambassadors and one of the Chargés that are under Ambassador Kritenbrink's tutelage right now are with us via video. You will hear from Ambassador Knapper from Vietnam. You'll hear from Ambassador Variava from Laos and the Chargé from Phnom Penh. Like Ambassador Kritenbrink, you will hear their commitment, steadfast commitment to this mission. If you could cue up the videos, please.
The DPAA team, and most importantly, Vietnam War family members. I'm Marc Knapper, the United States Ambassador to Vietnam. It's an honor to speak with you all again this year. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective on the U.S.-Vietnam relationship, specifically the U.S. MIA mission in Vietnam. My heart goes out to every family member who continues to wait to hear about the recovery of their loved ones. For those who aren't aware, the Vietnam War is personal to me. My father served here for a year south of Da Nang and then north of Hue in 1966 and 1967. During my first tour as a political officer in Vietnam in the early 2000s, I invited my father to Vietnam. He was reluctant at first, but with the prospect of spending time here with his son and grandson, he finally agreed to come visit. And so I was able to escort him around Vietnam, taking him to the places in which he had served. It was healing for him and impacted me and my family profoundly. The POW MIA mission is very important to me, not only as the U.S. ambassador, but as an American citizen. DPAA has my full support to accomplish their mission in Vietnam with the goal of bringing closure to families of the missing. I was encouraged to see 4 of our missing identified in 2023. Colonel DeSoto and Captain Hall were both identified on March 23rd. Captain Chipman was identified on August 2nd, and Captain Forrester was identified on December 4th. I'm also proud to support the efforts of U.S. veteran service organizations, as well as family groups. This year alone, we have received delegations from numerous VSOs and nonprofits representing MIA families. Their advocacy helps bring closure to the families and promotes reconciliation between the United States and Vietnam. During my time as ambassador, I have visited recovery sites on land and at sea. Each time I visit a site, I am humbled by the work that DPAA does on behalf of our country. I'm amazed at the close cooperation between our U.S. service members, Vietnamese officials, and local Vietnamese citizens as they work together to find our missing. I was moved by how physically laborious this task is, digging with shovels and passing mud and bucket lines to screening stations and seeing how the teams at the screening stations search for the smallest traces of aircraft wreckage or human remains. It is truly a team effort. I have also been honored to attend several repatriation ceremonies, most recently in April of this year. It is my honor to attend those ceremonies as we pay tribute to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. The cooperative work of searching for missing U.S. service members is foundational to the bilateral relationship between the United States and Vietnam, dating back to the 1980s. And during President Biden's historic visit to Vietnam last September, President Biden and General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong of the Communist Party of Vietnam announced a double upgrade of our relations from a comprehensive partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership. As President Biden stated, as we trace a 50-year arc of progress in the relationship between our nations, from conflict to normalization to this new elevated status, it will be a force for prosperity and security in one of the most consequential regions in the world. Next year will mark several key milestones in our two countries' ties. 30 years since the normalization of relations, and 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War. Given the incredible path of reconciliation in such a short time, I am optimistic for the future of our two countries. And know that, as Vietnam War families, our two countries' relationship is built on the foundation that you have helped to create. So in closing, once again, thank you, Director McCaig, and thank you to the Vietnam War family members for this opportunity to share my perspective on the future of the bilateral relationship and the significant role of the U.S. POW MIA mission here in Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, thank you for your time and for allowing me this opportunity to address you today. Although I am not able to be with you in person, the U.S. Embassy in Laos remains dedicated to this honorable mission. Searching for our Americans and reaching the fullest possible accounting of the missing in Laos remains a top priority for me as ambassador. The POW MIA mission was the first post-war area of cooperation between the United States and the Lao government. Since 1985, our countries have worked side by side, successfully completing 167 joint field activities and recovering 289 Americans. It is the longest enduring example of U.S.-Lao cooperation. Next year, we will celebrate the 40th anniversary of our cooperation on this important mission in Laos. We have successfully built upon this foundation and expanded areas of U.S. cooperation with the Lao PDR across multiple sectors, including public health, education, and UXO clearance, just to name a few. We have achieved much, but there still is much work to be done. We are very fortunate to have, as part of our embassy, Detachment 3 of the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA. Detachment 3 works tirelessly to provide the leadership and support necessary to ensure mission completion. In addition, Detachment 3 continues to work closely with the Stony Beach investigator in Laos to leverage the unique expertise and capabilities that she offers to the mission. The DPAA Stony Beach partnership in Laos meets the highest standards of excellence. Those able to visit one of these missions sees the dedication of the men and women who work together in austere and unforgiving environments. Despite these challenges, our teams, military, civilian, American, and Lao, establish a unique camaraderie and work closely together to achieve mission success. Every mission is truly a team effort, and I can say our team consistently represents the best that America has to offer. These missions leave a positive and lasting impression on the people of Laos, many of whom will have no other interaction with Americans other than through these joint field activities. I look forward to visiting my first JFA in Laos later this summer and witnessing this firsthand. My uncle served in the Army in Vietnam in 1968 and 1969. My family was fortunate that he returned to us safely. When I think of the missing, I think of my uncle and how lucky I am to know him today. And I think about families who did not get that opportunity. As a mission, we have a responsibility to do our absolute best to find our missing and return them home to their families. Or, at the very least, be able to tell families where and how their loved ones were lost. On this solemn occasion, we pledge our tireless commitment to account for the 287 Americans still missing in Laos, to provide closure, and to offer comfort to their families and loved ones. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, thank you for your time and for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. It is my honor to serve as the Chargé d'Affaires at Embassy Phnom Penh and to continue supporting this incredibly important mission. I can assure you today that fullest accounting for the 48 MIA POWs still missing remains a priority for the U.S. Embassy and our partners in Cambodia. Following the more than 30 years of partnership between the Kingdom of Cambodia, the U.S. Embassy, DPAA, and DIA, we continue to cooperate closely with the Cambodian government on this vitally important humanitarian mission. The Cambodian government continues to support our personnel and the DPAA teams in the field to access sites and to interview witnesses, many in remote areas along the borders with Laos and Vietnam. Our team at Embassy Phnom Penh raised the MIA mission with our partners at every engagement, including during Ambassador Murphy's May farewell call with Prime Minister Hun Manet. These meetings were frank, transparent, and productive. The Prime Minister promised his full support, was pleased to hear about our progress so far this year, and the planned efforts for the coming dry season. Our partnership with the Cambodian government exemplifies our efforts to provide the answers that you deserve. The synergy between DPAA and Stony Beach in investigating open leads and developing new ones continues in earnest, in coordination with the Defense Attaché Office in Phnom Penh. Eric Phillips continues to support operations in country with Stony Beach. Lieutenant Colonel Lunuzo and the DPAA Detachment 1 team in Bangkok routinely conduct key leader engagements with local officials and villagers to gain new details on open cases. The VFW in Phnom Penh also supports DPAA teams throughout the year, reflecting a true team effort. During his tenure, Ambassador Murphy traveled to visit many of the sites, from Koh Tang off the coast of southern Cambodia to deep in the jungle of the northeastern tribal areas. The embassy team in Phnom Penh looks forward to a continued strong partnership with DPAA as we move forward into 2025. Operationally, over the past 7 months, DPAA conducted 2 comprehensive missions in Cambodia. I understand DPAA will brief throughout the week explaining the execution and results of this year's missions. I want to highlight that DPAA, with the full support of the Cambodian government, executed both missions safely, as we expect will be the case for the upcoming missions later this year and into 2025. Finally, I want to thank you, the families, for continuing to push us to provide you with the answers you deserve. At times, we receive inquiries from the public asking why we continue to look for those who have been missing for so long. As your loved ones kept the ultimate faith with our country and our democracy, we must keep faith with them and you. I make the promise to you that we will continue to provide the fullest support possible to all efforts in Cambodia to account for your loved ones. I thank you for your time until they all come home.
Good morning. For those families I have yet to have the honor of interacting with and meeting, I'm Lieutenant Commander Brendan Jama. I am a policy desk officer. I'm your policy desk officer here in Washington, working for Ms. Jennifer Nasarenko, who I'm sure everybody knows, and Director McCaig here. And I have the pleasure of introducing our next group. I joined the agency 2 years ago, and one of my first events was USIP War Legacy Dialogue here in Washington, D.C. That's the U.S. Institute of Peace. And I, as a new desk officer with limited experience in Asia, I got the pleasure of interacting with many groups represented at that event. One here today, the Legacies of War nonprofit group. And on a panel discussion, I met 2 of their leadership who are here today. Sarah, if you don't mind standing up. Sarah, the CEO, and then Kamsan, the vice chairman of the board of directors. For a new desk officer with limited experience in theater, it's partnerships and friendships with groups like this that help get me up to speed to better represent your interests in my job as your policy desk officer. Now, most notably recognized for their work for UXO, for advocating for UXO remediation. The reason that we've invited this group here today is because of their other work, emphasizing the people-to-people ties that between America and our countries in Southeast Asia, and they do this through articles, through storytelling, and through podcasts. And it's for that reason that we wanted to emphasize some of these stories here today. So if you have not had the chance to meet this group, I encourage you to do so. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Miss Jessica Pearce Rotondi. She's going to share her personal story, and she is also the director of the Legacies of War Legacies Library. So without further ado, Jessica, please join us on stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendan, for that introduction, and thank you to DPAA. It is so emotional and special to be invited for the first time as Legacies of War today, so thank you for including us on this very important conference. We had a special request from Director McCaig to start this off with a Saibaidi, which means hello in Lao. Can we all say Saibaidi? Beautiful, thank you. Kopchalalai. My name is Jessica Pearce Rotondi. I'm a journalist, trustee, and chair of Legacies Library at Legacies of War. And I'm also the author of What We Inherit, A Secret War and a Family's Search for Answers. I'm also the mother of 2 young sons. And I'm standing before you today because my family, like your families, know what it's like to pray and continue to fight for answers even after it feels like everyone else around you has given up hope. Okay, I'm going to try to use this slide. Is this advancing, the green? Sorry, actually, I don't think I have the slide advancer. Does anybody have it? I'm so sorry, everyone. Oh, it's already advanced. Okay. I come from a military family. My grandfather, Ed Pearce, was a waist gunner on a B-17 during World War II and was shot down over Germany. He parachuted out of a burning plane at 19, landed in a German field, and was captured. He was a prisoner of war in the infamous Stalag 17 prison camp for 3 years. For those years, his parents didn't know if he was alive or dead. So when he walked back through his family's front door in Pittston, Pennsylvania, it felt like a small miracle. He went on to marry my grandmother and have 4 sons and a daughter, my mother. There we go. 3 of his sons followed his dad's example and joined the military. Mike, at the far left in the family photo, joined the Navy. Bob, the blonde in the front, was in the Marines. And that tall guy with the scowl on his face, that's Jack. Jack joined the Air Force. He's actually scowling in this picture because the family was going to Florida for the summer and he had a new girlfriend. He didn't want to leave her behind. He was a bit of a charmer, that one. But I'm so glad that he went on that trip because when the Vietnam War came, all 3 of the boys were called up. And history, rather horribly, repeated itself for my family. On March 29th, 1972, my uncle Jack Pearce was on a U.S. Air Force bombing mission over Chepon, Laos, when his AC-130 was shot down by a Russian surface-to-air missile. All 14 men aboard were declared missing in action, but an eyewitness on the ground reported 9 men rescued and captured by local forces. Because my grandfather had survived that shoot-down in World War II, he always believed that his son had survived as well. He retired early from the Pennsylvania State Police and spent the rest of his life fighting to bring his son home. He was the Northeast coordinator for the National League of Families, working closely with Ann, and he and my grandmother crisscrossed the country in their little RV, that same one that went to Florida, to meet with other families of the missing and to speak to anyone who would listen. In 1973, he joined a National League of Families trip to Laos. He interviewed refugees in camps and local officials and got within 9 miles of his son's crash site. Then he was turned away by police. When Ed got home, he marched on Washington, just a few blocks from where we're all standing right now, taking my young mom with him. Mom wrote to presidents and stormed embassies demanding answers about her brother's whereabouts and what the government was doing to bring him home. Jack was declared killed in action without a body or any additional evidence in 1979, a month before my mother's wedding to my father. She had delayed the wedding multiple times in the hopes that her brother could be there. My family refused to accept this and continued to demand an accounting from their government. I didn't learn about my missing uncle or the CIA-led war in Laos in school. We didn't talk about it in my family. It was too painful. Instead, I found out about it when I was 23 years old. My mother had just died of cancer, and I was kneeling on the floor of her closet looking for something to bury her in. That's when I unburied declassified CIA documents that chronicled my family's 36-year search for Jack and for answers about what really happened that night. Mom had lost Jack at the same age that I lost her. I grew obsessed with this paper trail my family had left behind, and in 2013, 40 years after my grandfather had traveled to Laos with the National League of Families, I went there in search of Jack's crash site, a place my grandfather and mother had circled on maps but never reached. And I wanted to complete that journey my grandfather had started in '73. I visited the village that Jack was bombing, I interviewed locals, and in the process, I learned about a war that most Americans never see. In America, it's called the Secret War, but in Laos, it's in people's front yards. Bomb craters greet kids leaving school. And I realized that those holes in my family, my mom's private grief as she was walking down the aisle at her wedding or giving birth to her children, all not knowing when or if she'd ever see her big brother again, those holes are out in the open here. You can see this is someone's front yard. They're building a new home directly behind the crater. Those holes in the wall in the left-hand corner, that's the local temple, so the equivalent of a church on Main Street with bullet holes still from the 70s in 2013. And the picture on the right is when I finally did reach that crash site of Uncle Jack's. In Laos, loss is imprinted on the land. The U.S. bombing left Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita in the entire world. More bombs were dropped on Laos than on Germany and Japan combined during World War II, which is just astounding when you think about it. We dropped over 2 million tons of ordnance on Laos, the equivalent of a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 9 years. And my uncle was part of that. And only 1% of the contaminated land has been cleared since the last bomb was dropped 50 years ago. People today are still dying from unexploded ordnance dropped before they were born. This year alone, 7 people have died and 33 more have been permanently injured from bombs. The latest accident occurred on June 16th in Luang Prabang, when an 8- and 5-year-old were killed, and another 5-year-old little boy severely injured after playing with a bombie they thought was a toy ball. Their mom had given it to them thinking it was a toy. Not much older than my sons. Cluster bombs like the kind Jack was dropping in Laos have been banned by over 100 countries because globally, over 50% of their victims are children. When I got back to the United States, I knew I wanted to continue my grandfather's work and tell more people about what I'd seen. I spent 10 years interviewing CIA agents, refugees, fellow families of the missing, and veterans. Then I wrote that book about my family's story and what I learned, What We Inherit, A Secret War and a Family's Search for Answers. I couldn't get those images that I'd seen in Laos out of my mind, and I wanted to do more. So I did one of those easy Facebook fundraisers we all do for our birthdays, and I dedicated it to Legacies of War, this amazing group I'd found online that addresses the ongoing impact of the American wars in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. I was shocked to get a phone call from Sarah Kulabdara, CEO of Legacies of War. Sarah, could you please stand? And she asked me to join her, and I was just so thrilled. She knows firsthand what it's like to live among these bombs because she grew up in Vientiane until age 6, when her father decided it was no longer safe to raise his children among bombs and moved them to the United States. As CEO of Legacies of War, Sarah lives and breathes our mission to raise awareness about our shared history, provide space for healing the wounds of war, and create greater hope for a future of peace through working with governments in Washington and in Laos to remove the bombs and provide victims' assistance to families who have lost limbs and loved ones. We can do this effectively because we built meaningful and personal connections on Capitol Hill and in Vientiane to gain access to cleanup sites in need of funding. As most people in this room know, bureaucracy can be a barrier to action. Our board includes former ambassadors, government officials, veterans, first and second generation diaspora community leaders, and citizens who live in Laos. So we combine our skills and know-how and we get things done. We have been a trusted partner in Laos for 20 years and care deeply about addressing the impact of war from all aspects. We speak regularly with leaders from both Laos and the U.S. and encourage better partnerships, not just for resolving the UXO issue, but in finding our loved ones and bringing them home where they belong. We share thoughts and feedback. We hear from the people of Laos and from Americans. We have ears on the ground. We're here to help you, okay? Legacies of War is relentless. For 20 years, we have traveled all across the country informing the public of the history of the U.S. involvement in Southeast Asia, made tens of thousands of phone calls, written as many letters, and roamed the halls of Congress. We've conducted research and written articles, published papers and books to keep this issue a priority in Washington. And it was Legacies of War who inspired the first sitting president to visit Laos and acknowledge America's role in the secret war. In 2016, President Barack Obama announced historic levels of funding for bomb clearance at $90 million. Oof. This didn't just miraculously happen. It was a direct result of Legacies of War, our partners and our friends in all those years of fighting until someone finally listened. And I encourage all of you and more leaders from the U.S. to visit Laos. It's a beautiful country. There's just so much to take from it. And we have kept the momentum strong ever since the president's visit. And funding for humanitarian demining is at its highest in history, $75 million for Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. But it's not enough. All 63 provinces in Vietnam are contaminated. Less than 10% of the contamination has been cleared in Laos. And we have a long way to go, and we will never stop fighting. In partnership with our friends at War Legacies Project, we have pushed for funding to address another legacy of war, the health and environmental impacts of Agent Orange. For the first time in history, the U.S. has allocated $1.5 million to Laos. I'm not a politician, you can probably tell. My family spent generations trying to get their attention. But I do know how to tell a story and harness its power for change. So when I joined Legacies of War, Sarah and I created something I wish existed when I began researching my own family story, and that's Legacies Library. Legacies Library is a collection of books, films, articles, and oral histories vetted by Legacies of War that tells the story of the American bombing in Laos and its neighbors in Vietnam and Cambodia. Legacies Library offers original programming, including film screenings, author talks, and interviews that tell the living story of the American secret war in Laos, ensuring it's no longer just a footnote in America's history. The library is a labor of love of veterans, family members of the missing, and members of the diaspora community. Though we come from very diverse backgrounds, we share a commitment to providing accurate and insightful resources on the legacy of the American secret war in Laos. For years, as I'm sure many of you know, a lot of what America was doing in Laos was kept a secret. We couldn't even talk about where our missing were. It made it so much harder to bring our men and women home. Now, we're helping to put valuable information back in the hands of the public. Information, as I'm sure many of you know, is power. It can be a lifeline for families still waiting. And the more the public knows about the cost of this conflict to families like ours, the more we can get things done. Sometimes it takes just one book or short film to get someone to sit up and pay attention. And we recently partnered with the Library of Congress. We have guides and contact information on our site where you can access Radio Lao broadcasts translated into English. The Savannah Fuma papers, you can actually see maps of where Agent Orange was sprayed in Laos. All these things were classified for years. It's such an exciting time to get, finally, some closure and some answers. So please, please use Legacies Library as a resource for your friends, your families, your neighbors, your congressmen. You can find us at legacesofwar.org/Legacies Library. Another great way to get involved, if you feel moved to do so, is to tell us your story. I talked about my family not really sharing what had happened to Jack for many years because it was too painful, and I recognize the pain in our stories, but also the more that we raise them up to the public, the more we can get attention and answers. Please consider being a guest on our Tip Cow podcast. The purpose of it is to open up more dialogue around topics that impact our communities in the aftermath of the war in Laos and the conflicts in Vietnam and Cambodia. Guests have included authors like George Black, author of The Long Reckoning, a beautiful, beautiful book, humanitarian aid workers. We even had people who are training rats and dogs to safely sniff out bombs. It's really incredible work. So learn more at legacesofwar.org/podcast. And lastly, I'm sure a lot of you have really talented young people in your life. Legacies of War is powered by our superstar interns. We partner with universities all over the U.S. and have hosted interns from Princeton, the University of Dayton's Human Rights Center, PACE, and many, many more. We partner with each school to provide opportunities for students to do real work. Our interns participate in congressional meetings, conduct research, and do our social media and newsletter mailings. We're committed to investing in our young adults, and it shows. Last year, we're so proud of this, our intern Anna Pumachan, who's now a staff member, became the first Mine Action Fellow to address the United Nations in Geneva. Not bad for an internship. So if you have smart young people in your life interested in meaningful work on this issue, contact us. They can have outsized impact with us. It's info@legacesofwar.org. There are many, many other ways to get involved. We have a Lam Vong Circle for just $10 a year. You can support our life-saving advocacy work. If you're a community builder, and like my grandparents, you know how much community matters when it comes to getting things done, you can host a fundraiser to help spread the word. But for me, the best way to get involved is to share your stories of how you're connected to the region and our work. This part of American history has been pushed aside for a very, very long time. And the time has come to tell the next generation that are missing are never, ever forgotten. Some of you may be sitting here wondering how Jack's story ends. In 1986, a team from JPAC exhumed Jack's AC-130 crash site in Laos, finding mainly commingled remains of those 14 boys. In 2006, armed with new technology, the excavation team and the DPAA finally got my family some answers, thanks in large part to a DNA sample my mother had provided while undergoing chemo. She lived long enough to bring her big brother home. My family may have closure, but there are thousands of families still waiting. I want to leave you with the inscription my mom wrote for the gravestone her brother and father now share. Separated by a generation, fought in different wars, both shot down from the skies. The father, a prisoner of war, returned to fall in love, raise 5 children, and live a long life. The son's remains were returned 36 years after he was shot down to be laid to rest with his father, who had never stopped searching for him. Don't stop searching. Don't stop telling your story. Let's bring our people home. Thank you so much.
My goodness. Jessica, thank you very much for not only sharing your powerful but poignant story with all of us, and more importantly, the legacy that you're carrying forward. You know, ladies and gentlemen, you know this. Your parents, your grandparents did exactly what hers did in inordinate ways and raised the nation's consciousness as to why this was a moral imperative. Thank you very much for continuing their legacy. On behalf of all of us, this is this year's POW MIA poster with our gratitude, not only for speaking to us today, but more importantly, all you do for the important partnership between Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and the United States.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. We're very pleased to have with us this morning Major General Ed Chrystal, a friend of mine. Major General Chrystal heads the Vietnam War Commemoration Commission. This was a congressionally authorized commission to celebrate and commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. It's actually a commission that extends beyond just a 1 year. General Chrystal is in charge of that entire nationwide, I take that back, worldwide effort. And as well, he heads and commands Task Force 23, which is the operational arm of the Commemoration Commission. Major General Chrystal is a veteran of the New Jersey State Patrol. Hopefully those of you that were on the turnpike like me never encountered him. However, some of you might. He might be able to offer you some, who knows, redemption at this stage. General Chrystal, thank you very much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Major General Ed Chrystal.
Hey, General McCaig, thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate it. Always great to be here with you. I know that often our missions kind of overlap with you looking for the unaccounted for and us honoring the Vietnam veterans and their family members. So again, thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be here with all of you. As Kelly alluded to, I was a state trooper, and I do recognize some of you in the back from those days, so I'll make sure that I'm just kidding. Hey, listen, I had a big speech written here, but I think it's more of an informal gathering that you don't want me to sit here and read to you, because it's not about me and my organization. This is about you. As was already mentioned, the Vietnam War Commemoration was enacted back in 2012 by an act of Congress, and we've been here since 2012 thanking and honoring Vietnam veterans and their families. That's their sole mission in life. I came on board around 2021. I met a lot of you folks in the room here, and honored to work with you to honor our Vietnam veterans and you, the families. So it's been a great mission. We've done a lot of great things. Our folks in the back can attest to that. What I've learned was, or what I'll tell you is, as a veteran, and any veteran in the room can tell you today, we're very good at thanking our service members. You can't go anywhere in uniform or with a hat on without being thanked for your service, without being offered to buy you a drink or buy you a lunch or something like that. But what I've learned is that we weren't very good at this as a nation 50 years ago. As a matter of fact, we were very bad at it. And in this job, I've also learned that not only did we treat our returning service members badly, but we treated their families badly. And that is just inexcusable. And the country has changed that and has made every effort to right that wrong, and that's why we're here representing the United States government to thank and honor the Vietnam veterans within the 50th anniversary. So the 50th anniversary, according to the commemoration, encompasses the time of 1955 through 1975, when the last American troops had left Vietnam. Granted, the combat was completed around 1973, and that's when the POWs were released and came home, a lot of them, but our mission will continue until November of 2025. And we estimate there are 6 million Vietnam veterans living here and abroad that had served during that period. So far, our commemoration has reached, according to our tally, 4 million of them. So we have about a year and a half to get to the rest of them, and we're doing the best that we can. And also in that program, we have the Certificate of Honor program, which is what we're here today to do for the families like you, the unaccounted for families. And we are here to support you. We are here to present this, and it's just a small token from the United States government, but it is a pin that we hope you'll wear proudly. It has the POW MIA flag on the front of it, and it says "Never Forgotten." And it's meant and it's heartfelt, and we're here to give you that. And I'll be around here if anybody wants to talk after, but I think without much further ado, we'll get right into the certificate program. So Rich is going to read the certificate, and we're going to call some names up and do some pinnings. Thanks. Thank you all. God bless you all.
So each of the certificates reads, "On behalf of a grateful nation and the Department of Defense, we honor you for your significant sacrifice you and your family continue to make in the name of freedom and democracy over these many years. Thank you for your courage and for being an inspiration to the people of the United States of America. We renew our commitment to the fullest possible accounting for our patriots who have not returned. Our nation is forever indebted to you and extends its deepest respect and admiration." Done this 20th day of June, signed by Secretary of Defense. As we call each of your names, please come up to the front so we can pin you in front of everybody and present you the certificate. I may call out a few people who may not have been able to be here. First one, Mr. Douglas E. Onspach. Darcel Carter. Larry Potts. Marc Brown, Michael Brassfield, Shanta Butler, Bill Skibby. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names as well.
Actually, that's right.
Sophie Gonzalez, Raymond Echevarria, Jr., Donna Echevarria, Donald Gassman, Penelope Gray, Jervis, Bruce Hallberg Jr., Ruben Huddleston. Wayne Hunt. Kenneth Hunt. Susan Harvey. Antoinette Kelly. Charles Milliner. Robert O'Neill. Patricia Perry. Constance Kohlheim. Fred Pringle. Cynthia Sagart Book. Regina Woods. Stephen Merrick. George Patterson. I'm going to mess up this last name. Daniel Roththorn.
You didn't mess it up. No, we didn't.
We'll give him a passing grade on that one.
Not going to be able to get through the beer there.
Yes, sir.
I believe Mr. Milliner walked back in. Charles Milliner. Okay. Paul Riordan. Brenda Sorrells. Jonathan Strong Sr. and Jonathan Strong Jr. Sharon Messier.
You say that right? Pretty close.
Heather Henry. Michael Phillips.
Rich, you're not giving anybody time. You don't jump up and sound off. You know what you're all right. Thank you.
Stephen Morrissey. Marc Renelt. Carl Renelt. Carolyn Hendricks. Save the hardest name for last. Adilma Weissmuller. Weissmuller.
How did you do with your name?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a direct family member of one of those veterans that are still on count for,
just came back, Charles.
Oh, great.
awesome. Mr. Charles Milner. As I was saying, if you're a direct family member of a veteran that is still unaccounted for and you have not received your lapel pin and or your certificate, please see your branch casualty service officer and they can get me the information and I'll be able to get these out to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Perfect. I'm sorry. Which one? What, your last name, sir? Echeverria. You're good. The last three. Yep, last one.
Pass. Mr. Patterson.
Special.
Thank you. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Can we just have one more round of applause for all of our family members that came out today? It's just some quick closing remarks. I want to thank you again for us being here. Again, 50 years ago, it's really a shame. The country is ashamed of itself, how it treated our returning warriors and their family members. And the biggest takeaway of that is that the Vietnam veteran could have turned their back on society, and the Vietnam veteran did not do that. And I often say how Colonel Kramer and myself, General McCaig, when our generation and younger generations of veterans came back from our combat zones and got off the planes, the first one there to shake our hand and applaud and make sure we weren't forgotten was the Vietnam veteran. So they changed the culture, and they were going to make sure that what happened to them would not happen to the rest of the veterans that returned. So we give them a lot of credit for that. And organizations like the DPAA, who make sure that our unaccounted for are not forgotten, and I saw Colleen Shine in the audience, and organizations such as Sons and Daughters in Touch make sure that unaccounted for families like yourselves have a voice and that you're not forgotten. So again, thank you, God bless you, and thank you for affording us the opportunity to honor you today. Thanks.
General Chrystal, thank you very much. You heard that this is a 13-year effort and one marked by 4 million veterans that were properly recognized. Thank you to you and the Commission for the great work that you all do. You call them unaccounted for family members. They're also MIA family members. They're also unreturned veterans family members. So the fact that you include them is, again, a testament to their loved ones' supreme sacrifice made in the Vietnam War. On behalf of all of us, this is a commemoration poster of this year's National Recognition Day, and our thanks for the great work that you all do.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, folks, right now we're going to take a 20-minute break. We're going to be back in here at 10:40, and then we will have the operational overview from our DDO, Colonel Matt Brannon. All right, 10:40.